Jolene Turner doesn't get a lot of sleep these days, haunted by what she sees when she closes her eyes.
Every night when I go to bed, it plays over and over again like a movie. So I'll stay up at 3 days at a time just to avoid it.
A daughter lost.
She just wasn't there.
And what the mother found.
Jolene said it felt like someone had punched her in the gut.
What really took place the night Samantha Folsom suddenly disappeared, and why the horror that happened after.
It split her parents apart.
I didn't want to leave her.
It's like a carnival ride that never stops. All I want is, I want it to stop.
Remember the beginning. It was the first picture taken of her as a baby.
From the day their daughter was born, Samantha Turner's parents were the very epitome of proud.
She was a really good daughter. She loved to go out with us, even though we were old to her. And it was like being with a friend versus, you gotta come out with us. We're your parents, we say so. We had some really good times.
Yeah, we did.
But it wasn't just that she was fun to be around. John and Jolene say it was also the choices their daughter made, the kind that build character.
She was a wonderful child. We never in any type of trouble whatsoever. She was also a protector of sort of the underdog.
Both a champion and a cheerleader, Samantha's parents say she could have been anything, but that sometime after high school, their daughter got off track. And they say it started around the time she met a man named Jesse Folsom, a man Samantha's mom had a hard time welcoming into their lives.
It's just what you call a mother's instinct. I knew that he was not right for her.
And she says mother's instinct became intuition confirmed when she started noticing dark bruises on her daughter's arms.
I asked her one day, why are you wearing long sleeves in the middle of summer? And I lifted up her shirt and found the marks.
She suspected the marks were coming from Jesse, and Jolene says when she confronted them both about the alleged abuse, neither denied it. But Sam's family also says that after a lot of work and time, things actually seem to improve.
I did the best I could with Jesse. I worked 3-4 nights a week getting him his GED.
And then John helped Jesse start a career in the Army.
And they were going to start a new life. And I had his word at the time that he was going to protect her.
And with that promise in place, Jesse and Samantha decided to make a few more, like To Have and to Hold and Till Death Do Us Part.
They got married and moved to California. Her husband was stationed in the Army.
But after that, Samantha's parents say it was more than just her last name that changed.
When they came back to visit, or, you could see there was a difference. She wasn't the same person. She was tired and she was introverted.
Samantha's mom suspected drugs, and once again her instincts were dead on. Samantha eventually confesses that she developed an addiction in California, and that even though she tried to shake it, she just couldn't.
She didn't want to tell me because she didn't want to disappoint us.
Then during another visit home, a revelation that would force Samantha to fight her demons harder than ever. Samantha is suddenly hit by a severe pain in her side. Her mom fears appendicitis and rushes her to the emergency room where doctors do an ultrasound of her abdomen.
When they did the ultrasound, she found that she was pregnant.
It was a surprise, but a happy one. And several months later, she gave birth to a perfectly healthy baby boy. Her parents say she was determined to keep it that way. After years of alleged dysfunction, Sam and Jesse split up. She moved back to Maine, got her own apartment close to her parents' place, and decided to make one more very big change.
She wanted to go to rehab. She decided she wanted to change for her son. And that was the turning point in her life.
Her son was staying with another family member when she told her parents she was ready to get help.
She was going to come to our house, and we were going to take her to the rehab the next morning. Well, the next day, when she just wasn't there. 6 o'clock came, 7 o'clock, nothing.
The Turners made several calls to their daughter, each one more frantic than the last, but all went unanswered. And when they knocked on her apartment door, that went unanswered too.
I went to the housing place and I asked them to let me in because I wanted to do a welfare check. And they said, no, you're not on the lease.
After that, Samantha's parents filed a missing persons report. But they say there was little done. And for the next 3 days, they went back and forth between police and Samantha's apartment manager trying to get someone to listen.
Finally, I went to the housing place again and I said, look, she's got a cat in there that hasn't ate in days. So they worked with me. They sent a maintenance man out and he opened it up.
Right away, they say everything felt wrong.
It was November. All the fans were on, windows were open, television was full blast.
When I first walked in, my focus was more or less finding the cat, and I knew cat carrier was in the closet.
I went outside because it was, it was kind of musty. And she yells, John, quick, come here. And she opened the closet door, and that's where our life changed.
November in the state of Maine can be bitterly cold, which is why John and Jolene Turner had such a sinking feeling when they walked into their daughter's apartment one chilly autumn day and found all the windows wide open.
And there was a fan that she had that was blowing air out of the apartment in the middle of November.
At that point, it had been 3 days since Samantha Folsom's parents reported her missing. They had gained access to her apartment to retrieve her cat.
And so I opened the closet door where the cat carrier was, and there she was.
There she was. I'm sorry.
It was their 26-year-old daughter, Samantha Folsom, murdered and stuffed into the closet.
When I saw it, it was like almost, I felt like her soul had gone through me, and it threw me back 6 feet against the wall. Thank God for one thing, that her head was down and I didn't see her face. But still, the memory of that haunts me.
State police immediately take over the investigation. And though Samantha's exact cause of death is not immediately revealed, there's no secret who may have wanted her dead: her estranged husband and the father of her child, Jesse Folsom. According to Samantha's mom, Jesse had abused her daughter in the past, and her death came not long after the couple split up. Also, it was reported that Sam had already found a new boyfriend, all reasons Jesse might have been enraged. But there was one little problem with that lead.
Jesse was in jail.
Former newspaper reporter Scott Dolan explains.
He was in jail for assaulting Sam's boyfriend, who she had after they split up.
But maybe Jesse wasn't the only one with a motive. What about that new boyfriend? Apparently, Sam had recently broken it off with him as well. And according to her mom, it's because he too was abusive. The problem is, that was also his alibi.
The boyfriend was in jail for assaulting her. Jesse was in jail for assault of the boyfriend.
It just was crazy.
Two seemingly prime persons of interest, cleared by other crimes, and after that, it appeared there weren't many other places to look.
People were baffled. Sam had her problems. She had an addiction, but everyone described her as like a happy, joyous person. She had friends, and she was focused on taking care of her son. She was trying to get clean and stay clean.
In fact, investigators appeared to have so little to go on, they didn't even classify Samantha's death as a murder.
Initially, after Sam's death, they said it was undetermined. It was a year later that the state police issued a statement saying that it had been declared a homicide. I talked to the spokesman for the state police, and he said that it had been a homicide all along. They just didn't announce it. To me, that means that they had a lead and that they couldn't get to the end of that lead. So then at that point, there were hopeful that something else would push the case a little bit closer.
And Scott says that's where he came in.
I was working at the Portland Press-Herald as a reporter, and I looked back to see what reporting had been done on her death, and there was very little writing. So I decided to go investigate, interview a lot of people, and find any leads I could find.
First, he talked to police, but they could only say so much.
The head detective at the time, he told me that they had leads, and they were closing in, and but it was still an open investigation.
That's when Scott talked to Samantha's neighbors, and that's where he says he learned a lot more about the investigation.
I think the most important interview I did of a neighbor. She lived right next door to Sam, and she's the one who told me. Detectives came to her door, and they showed her that picture of this person, and they asked her if they recognized this person.
Scott says the picture was of a man with a dark complexion who was wearing a shirt and tie and some sort of badge.
And that was the only person they asked her about.
Andy says the neighbor also told police about a conversation she had with Samantha not long before she was killed.
They said that someone had come to Sam's door either the day before or day of, knocking and calling for her. Said that Sam was terrified of whoever was knocking on her door.
Was that person the same man in the picture being circulated by police? And why would he come knocking in the first place?
From what I gathered, Sam was in the drug world. She was trying to get clear of it. I think it was probably someone from her past or some acquaintance who was drawing her back in.
We reached out to Maine State Police for a comment, and while they declined to give any official statements on camera, they were present during our investigation and confirmed that even after 6 years, this case is still very much open and active.
If people have information or knowledge, they still should contact the Maine State Police. They're the lead investigators. If there's any closure to be brought to this homicide investigation, they're the ones who are going to bring it.
What defines closure at this point is hard to say, but in the years since their daughter's death, life for John and Jolene no longer resembles what it once was.
After that, the whole thing went to hell. Just the bottom dropped off.
And our last Christmas.
Our family life, the dynamics is completely screwed up. Jolene and I have been married for 35 years, and now we've been divorced for 2.
It split her parents apart. They were a close-knit family. They were a strong family. But the grief, it was too much. It was too much. And I think it haunts Jolene and John.
The nighttime is the worst because I suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder from finding her in the condition she was in. At her funeral, I was her pallbearer, and I was the one who pushed her coffin into the storage room because I didn't want to leave her. It was all we had left.
And yet, as hard as it's been through all the pain and uncertainty, there are a few things Jolene says she knows for sure. Simple truths that help ease the nightmares.
At the end of it all, I know 2 places where she is. Down the road at St. Peter's Cemetery and in heaven.